talking about people, and that's what should be at the heart of everything that we're talking about, because when we're talking about Iraq, we're talking about healthcare, we're talking about the economy, we're talking about the future of our schools. We're talking about real lives and real people. And we always have to keep that at the center of what we're talking about. That's how I was raised. That's the importance of community, that's the importance of family, that's the importance of making sure that we have the resources we need to get things done. I want to talk about schools a little bit. I have a friend here, that's Marisol, that actually came up from one of the school districts. Marisol is a counselor for an elementary, right? And she's been in the school district for a few years now, not very many years, but more years than she'll allow me to say. But Marisol tells me stories about kids every day that come to school that she knows that didn't have a chance to eat. Not because they decided to skip out on breakfast because they were in a hurry, but because there wasn't food to eat, or there wasn't a meal for them to have. And sometimes those same kids would show up to school without pencils or paper, supplies that they needed, even little things that they needed to get by. And our counselors and our teachers, they reach into their pockets. I don't know how many other educators we have here, but you buy those supplies for these kids. You take care of them. You want to make sure that they have something to eat. And most of these kids, when we're talking about some of the before school, after programs that we need, but school breakfast and school lunch, it's the only meal that these kids sometimes get. The nation is rich and as great as the United States. When we talk about priorities and not taking care of our kids, making sure that our teachers and our schools have the resources they need, but our public schools, we need a strong public school system. There's been a little bit of an assault on that the last few years, as you're well aware. But when we talk about taking care of our kids, before school, after school programs to give our kids a head start in life, it's something that we need to do. I think it's really telling when President Bush decided to veto the S-chip bill. When we're talking about providing additional health care to our kids, starting with our kids and expanding those services so that every man, woman, and child can get health care that they deserve. Because health care should be treated as a right, and don't let anyone else tell you different. There's something wrong when you're born with an illness, and then some corporation or some entity decides to call that a pre-existing condition, and you can't get the coverage you need to get the health care you need because you're sick. Well, I don't like to go visit my doctor when I'm healthy and when I'm having a good time. It's generally when you're not feeling well. So those that are sick should get access to health care. Something's a little backwards here. One thing I'm really proud of at the commission that we worked on is we worked this last year with the legislature to close some loopholes. We worked with Senator Dee Dee Feldman, with the New Mexico legislature. The governor signed the bill into place, recognizing that as we move forward to reform the healthcare system, we needed to make sure that we found areas where we could make improvements every day. Because while your goal should be to get there, to get universal health care, to get health care for every person that we can, for every man, woman, and child, we need to recognize that there's small steps that we can take to get there as well to hold people more accountable. That's what we did this last year. We told the superintendent of insurance, the new superintendent of insurance, to open up an inquiry to look into the denial practices of health insurance companies. Something that we should only do here in New Mexico, but that we should do around the country. Because now, especially, the times are tough and the economy is stretching everybody even further. These entities are going to be looking to increase their cash flow any way that they can. And we need to make sure that we're looking to help out people, that we're going to keep our eye out on consumers. I ran into a couple not too long ago. There's some friends that I went to high school with, and they were trying to increase the size of their family, to grow the family. They had a young son, and she went to the doctor to see what was going on because they weren't having any luck. The doctor treated her and diagnosed her with something called endometriosis a couple years earlier. But he said there may be a complication with infertility. So they went round and round a little bit more. She submitted her claim to get paid, and most of the women in here know when you're getting treated for infertility, sometimes that's not included in your coverage for whatever reason that may be. So they sent her a denial letter. She appealed it. She sent it back. Said, "Oh, there might be a mistake here. Can you please take a look at this again?" They sent another rejection letter. And so she started getting the calls from the creditor saying, "You need to start paying these bills." But the kicker was that she didn't just have to pay for the denial for that visit that she had to her doctor. She was going to have to pay for the last 2 years while she was getting treated for endometriosis, because infertility is related to endometriosis. And so because something that wasn't covered in her plan was related to something else that she was getting treated for, they told her, not only do you have to pay for this last doctor visit, you have to pay for the last years of treatment. And they were just in a new home. They were going to have to put the home up to try to cover the bills. But common sense told them that that was not right. So I talked to them and they said, Ben, can you help us with this? And I took it back to the commission not knowing what we could do, but knowing that we probably could do something. And so they looked at the claim and they actually, the Consumer Relations Division through the process reversed the decision of the insurance company and covered that claim. But how many other people just sometimes don't want to rock the boat because you know that you need that coverage when you're really going to be sick and there's a serious injury or you're in an accident where those bills are going to pile up. And people are facing that today. And there's something wrong with these big insurance companies are putting their interests and their profits ahead of you and your health care